A tiny island in the Mediterranean served as a secret prison for Europe's unwanted royalty. This is Ponza, a stunningly beautiful Italian island that became a gilded cage for deposed kings, rebellious queens, and fallen emperors. You are about to uncover the true stories of these forgotten figures who traded their palaces for a prison surrounded by sea. We will explore the shocking political schemes that sent a pope to this remote outpost and unravel the personal scandals that silenced powerful nobles. By the end, you will understand how one small island held the power to erase some of history's most significant lives from the pages of power. Which story of a lost crown do you think is waiting to be remembered? Ponza rises from the Tyrrhenian Sea like a jagged emerald, its dramatic cliffs and hidden coves belying a dark purpose. This island, a mere speck of land off the Italian coast, possessed a cruel perfection for its role. Its breathtaking beauty was a facade for its true nature, a fortress of solitude. Surrounded by treacherous waters and far from the scheming courts of the mainland, it was the ideal place to make a troublesome royal disappear. A deposed ruler here was both spectacularly housed and utterly trapped, a prisoner in a postcard-perfect scene. The island's strategic value was understood as far back as the Roman Empire. Roman authorities, masters of political control, were the first to recognize Ponza's potential. They began a long tradition of using its remote shores to banish political rivals and disgraced family members. This set a powerful precedent, a blueprint for neutralizing threats through isolation. For centuries after, European powers would look to this Roman model, understanding that an island prison could be far more effective and discreet than a dank dungeon. Life on the island for these high-status inmates was a study in contradictions. They might reside in a comfortable villa with stunning sea views, but they were never alone. Every servant was a potential spy, every fisherman a guard. The very geography that provided such beautiful scenery also formed an inescapable barrier. The sparkling blue sea was not a gateway to freedom, but a vast, shimmering wall. Inmates could walk along the cliffs, breathe the salt air, and feel the sun on their faces, yet every path led back to the same confined existence. This was the essence of the gilded cage, a life of luxury stripped of all true liberty, where the greatest punishment was the endless, beautiful horizon, a constant reminder of a world they could no longer reach. Centuries before kings and queens were sent to its shores, Ponza's role as a place of suffering was carved from the story of a single, defiant girl. Her name was Julia, a Carthaginian Christian living in the turbulent 5th century. Captured during a Vandal invasion, her life of freedom was brutally traded for the chains of slavery. She was purchased by a Syrian merchant named Eusebius, a pagan who recognized not just her labor but her unwavering spirit. It was this unbreakable faith that would ultimately chart her course to that lonely island in the Tyrrhenian Sea. During a trading voyage, their ship anchored at Ponza, a common stop for merchants crossing the Mediterranean. A pagan festival was underway, and Eusebius, wishing to partake in the celebrations and perhaps conduct business, joined the revelry. He ordered his slave to accompany him and make offerings to the Roman gods. But Julia refused. She would not, even under threat, betray her Christian beliefs. This single act of spiritual defiance on an island far from her home sealed her fate. The local governor, outraged by her refusal and seeing it as an insult to the gods and the festival, intervened. He presented Eusebius with a terrible choice. If he would not punish his slave, the merchant could pay a hefty fine to compensate for her sacrilege. Eusebius, perhaps more attached to his coin than his conscience, refused. He abandoned Julia to the governor's justice. What followed was a brutal martyrdom. She was tortured, beaten, and according to the legend, crucified. Her death cemented her sainthood and etched a new, sacred layer onto Ponza's identity. This was no longer just a remote rock, it was now a place of holy sacrifice. The story of Saint Julia established a powerful pattern. Long before it held kings in gilded cages, This island was a stage for the ultimate price of conviction. How many others would find their freedom ended on these same shores? Their own beliefs becoming their prison walls, the island's sacred history soon gave way to a far more worldly purpose, as the chaotic collapse of the Roman Empire turned the Mediterranean into a chessboard of warring factions. In this new era of shifting power, Ponza became a strategic tool, a place to quietly remove the most significant pieces from the game. The first and perhaps most startling of these political prisoners was a man believed to be God's own representative on earth, Pope Silverius. His story reveals just how high the stakes had become. In the year 537, the Byzantine Empress Theodora, a formidable power in Constantinople, saw the Pope as an obstacle to her religious ambitions. She wanted a pontiff who would support her theological stance, and Silverius refused to bend. The result was a stark display of raw political might. Silverius was accused of treason, forcibly stripped of his papal vestments, and deposed. He was not thrown into a dark dungeon, but something perhaps more isolating. He was sent to Ponza, a prisoner in a sun-drenched exile, where he died under mysterious circumstances, likely from the harsh conditions or outright murder. This was an unprecedented act, proving that no title, not even the papacy, was safe from the scheming of empires, but the island's prison population was only just beginning to grow. With the Pope's fate sealed, the Byzantine Empire continued to use Ponza as a dumping ground for other thorny problems, specifically the remnants of the Ostrogoth kingdom they had just conquered. After their final defeat, the Ostrogoth royal family and their most loyal nobles were no longer merely enemies on a battlefield. They were potential figureheads for rebellion. What do you do with a prince who, even in chains, could inspire an uprising? You do not execute him and create a martyr. Instead, you make him vanish. The Byzantine authorities systematically rounded up these Ostrogoth princes and nobles, severing them from their people and their history, and shipped them to the isolation of Ponza. Here, surrounded by sea, their claims to power meant nothing. They were fed, housed, and utterly neutralized, their very lineages erased from the political landscape. This practice was chillingly effective, a way to end a royal bloodline not with a sword, but with silence. Ponza had perfected its role, transforming from a place of martyrdom into a machine for political oblivion, setting a grim template that would echo for 1,000 years. Yet even as the Byzantine Empire faded into history, Ponza's purpose did not. The island's isolation remained a potent tool, waiting silently in the blue Mediterranean for its next high-profile prisoners. They would arrive over 1,000 years later, not from a fallen kingdom, but from the very heart of Europe's most glittering court. This time, the unwanted royals were not deposed kings or conquered princes, but a group of beautiful, ambitious sisters whose only crime was being related to the wrong man at the wrong time. Their story is one of courtly intrigue, poisoned candy, and the long, vengeful arm of the Sun King. The 5 nieces of Cardinal Mazarin, the all-powerful chief minister of France, were known collectively as the Mazarinettes. Their uncle had been the political mastermind behind the throne of a young Louis XIV, and he used his nieces as pawns in a grand strategy to secure his family's power through advantageous marriages. He married them off to the highest-ranking nobles in France, weaving a network of influence that stretched deep into the aristocracy. But after the cardinal's death, these women, now powerful duchesses and princesses in their own right, found themselves in a perilous position. They were immensely wealthy, well-connected, and worse, they were seen as a threat by the increasingly absolute King Louis. The king viewed their independent wealth and their late uncle's lingering influence as a challenge to his own authority. The atmosphere at the Palace of Versailles grew thick with suspicion, and it would take only a whisper of scandal to bring the entire house of cards tumbling down. That whisper arrived in the form of a dark rumor, an accusation so audacious it threatened the crown itself. The king's primary mistress, Madame de Montespan, was said to be involved in the infamous affair of the poisons, a sprawling scandal that implicated members of the nobility in plots involving black magic and even attempted murder. Gossip swirled that poisoned candies had been sent to another of the king's mistresses, and suspicion fell upon the Mazarin nieces. They were accused of participating in this shadowy network, of using witchcraft to influence the king and his court. Whether the accusations were true or merely a convenient excuse to remove them, the result was swift and severe. Louis XIV, intolerant of any challenge, real or imagined, ordered their arrest. But he would not execute them, for they were still high-born nobility. Instead, he reached for the old Roman playbook. He banished them. The Mazarinettes were torn from their luxurious lives at Versailles and shipped to the remote isolation of Ponza. Their exile was not about war or conquest, but about silencing political embarrassments and personal rivals. It was a different flavor of banishment, driven by court gossip and the king's personal pique. On Ponza, these sophisticated women, accustomed to the finest art, music, and conversation in Europe, found themselves imprisoned by beauty. They lived in relative comfort, but the sparkling sea that surrounded them was a constant reminder of everything they had lost, their powerful voices now silenced by the sound of the waves. From the martyrdom of a single defiant girl to the silencing of a pope, and from the erasure of entire royal bloodlines to the banishment of glittering courtiers, Ponza's history is a single, repeating lesson. Power, once lost, finds its final resting place on this beautiful, isolated shore. Each story, whether one of faith, politics, or personal scandal, echoes the same truth. A crown is a fragile thing, and the favor of a king or an empire can vanish as quickly as a ship disappearing over the horizon. These figures, from St. Julia to the Mazarinettes, all learned that the greatest prisons are not always made of stone. They can be built from shifting political alliances, from a monarch's jealousy, or simply from the vast, uncaring sea. The legacy of these forgotten lives is now etched into the island's very soil and sea cliffs. If you stand there today, you are walking in the footsteps of popes and princesses who looked out at the same endless blue, knowing the world had moved on without them. Their whispers are still carried on the wind, a permanent part of Ponza's haunting beauty, so we leave you with this question. Of all the exiled royals and lost souls whose stories were told here, which one's fate captivated you the most? Was it the tragic pope, the vanished Ostrogoth princes, or the sophisticated nieces of the cardinal? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this journey into a forgotten corner of history, subscribe for more mysteries waiting to be uncovered.